and I didn't. So I'm going to show you guys. Hold on just a second. Clear that off. This is similar to what we're doing tonight. So we're not going to do this exact image, but I am going to teach you how to do some palette knife flowers tonight and give you a few techniques. So if you haven't ever used a palette knife, this will be a really fun experience. Once I started using palette knife a few years ago, I fell in love with it. And now I incorporate it into a ton of my art. So before we get started with the painting, I wanted to just share a little bit about myself and kind of my journey with art and what brought me to being here tonight with you guys teaching with Michaels. So I have been an artist my entire life. My mom was, my grandpa was, so I was raised with it. I picked up a paintbrush probably when I was 3 or 4. I've been painting with my mom since I was a little girl, and all through school, went to college with an art degree, later graphic design. And in the midst of all of that, just to keep this short and sweet, I got married. We are celebrating 20 years this year to my husband, Court, and we have 3 girls. Kylie's 17, Emma is 14, and Sophia is turning 10 next weekend. And so mom of 3 girls, was in the midst of finishing my graphic design degree. I went back after I had kids, and then I decided to start a paint party business. And this all kind of happened by accident. So my oldest was turning 10. I've been painting, teaching women how to paint for 7 years now. And Kylie was turning 10 and she wanted to do a paint party for her birthday. And I thought I can definitely teach a group of 10-year-olds how to paint. So my husband actually built me this easel that I'm using tonight, and he built 10 of these. And we got everyone set up in the dining room at our house, and I taught the girls to paint, and it was fun, and I thought nothing of it and just thought it was a fun kids party. And then the moms came to pick their kids up, and they were in complete shock that I had taught their daughters how to paint and that it actually looked good. And they said, "This is so cool, you should do this for us." And I was like, okay. I never thought about that. And keep in mind, I was getting my degree in graphic design at this time. But I love painting. I've always loved painting, and it's been my passion. But never in a million years did I think it was something that I could do for a living and get paid for. So anyways, I let them be my guinea pigs. And it was getting close to Christmas around then. So in November, I designed my first painting, and I drew this whimsical Christmas tree. You can go to thesocialeasel.com and see that. And I invited 10 of my girlfriends over and tested it out on them and started walking them through step-by-step how to create this painting. And at the end of the class, it worked, and they were gorgeous, and they had so much fun. And they were like, "You need to turn this into a business." So I started on the side while I was still going to school, just starting to do paint parties here and there. I started with the 10 easels that Corey got me and did in-home parties. And I got all of my supplies from Michaels. So I'm just gonna kind of go over a little bit of what I started with. So Corey built my easels for me, but Michaels has these awesome bulk packs of canvases you can buy. So I would go in there and I'd get the 5 packs of 16 by 20 is what I usually taught my classes on. And this is just one brush because we're not using a lot of brushes tonight. But this is out of the Michaels 10-piece Artist Loft brush set. And they are, I think, $5.99. I may be wrong on that, guys. But they're around that price, between $5 and $6. And that was how I started out. And every time I would go to Michaels, I'd buy a little bit more. And I just started kind of building up my paint supplies so that I could have enough to teach more parties. And from there, like I said, I was doing it on the side. This boutique asked me to come and start doing like paint craft nights. And we quickly filled up a class of 10, and they were like, "Can your husband build you some more easels?" And so he did, and he built me 10 more, and we were at 20, and it just kept growing from there. And very quickly, we had grown to, maxing out local restaurants in the area in their meeting rooms to 40 to 50 women a night. And that was kind of the beginning of my journey. Needless to say, I left graphic design behind and put all my eggs in this basket of a paint party business, and have been doing that for the last 7 years. And 2 years ago, I decided I wanted to take it online. I mentioned my kids earlier, and it was kind of like all good in the beginning. They were still little, they didn't have a lot of activities. I didn't feel like I was missing out too much, but the older they got, the more I realized I only had so many years left, especially with my oldest, and I started resenting having to be gone at night teaching. And so I started looking into the online world. And so I actually started my online membership, which is called Christie's Inner Tribe, 3 years ago. It'll be almost 3. It's 3 years in April. And I've been teaching online for almost 3 years now. I keep saying 2 years ago, but we're about to celebrate our 3-year anniversary online. And now I have 2 memberships. I have our Inner Tribe, which is where I teach ladies how to paint in my private group 3 times a month. And then I also have my Painting of the Month Club, where women can just sign up for 1 painting a month that they get added to their membership library. So in a nutshell, that is my business and kind of how I got to where I am right now. And thank you. And yeah, I don't know if you guys want me to, I'm going to ask Michael's real quick. Do you guys want me to pause a little bit here? I don't know if there are any questions about the business part before I jumped into the painting part. If anyone had any questions of kind of how I got to where I am right now.
Right now, Adia wants to know where she can find your Christmas painting and what your Instagram account is as well.
Instagram, yes, I was going to say it's actually on Instagram. Yeah, it's everything. All of my social tags are just the social easel. So if you can find me on Instagram, Pinterest, thesocialeasel.com is my website, and then obviously the Social Easel on Facebook as well. And when you go to the website, I don't know how many of you out there are new to painting or have never painted before, or you just want to learn more about it. We have a blog over on my website that will give you tons of great tips and breaks everything down. So there's a lot of great resources for you there to go check out the painting. But Instagram is where you can go and scroll down and you'll see that whimsical Christmas tree.
Okay, so another question. Anne would like to know what tool helped you promote your business most?
Oh my, it wasn't just one tool. I will say what helped me the most when I transitioned to the online world. I don't know if you're talking online or offline. So I'll kind of answer both. Offline, it was literally word of mouth. I did not do any advertising when I was offline. I did start my Facebook page 7 years ago, just like everyone does when they start a business, with, having my friends and family follow me. And then it was just word of mouth. And, quickly it became something different that people could do with their kids for birthday parties or a girls' night out. And it was something different. And I was one of the first people to do it in Springfield. And so I was very fortunate in that way that I was kind of at the head of the game when I started. And so my following grew pretty quickly. And I kept just constantly posting on social media and sharing what I was doing in the local paint parties, sharing them online and building my following that way. As far as growing my business online, the first thing I would say to anybody wanting to do that is that you need to get a business coach. I actually don't do coaching. I have a lot of awesome ladies who do. Some of them are here with me on this trip right now that I would refer you to do some coaching with. But it's very important for you to find a business coach who can help guide you in the right directions of how to grow your presence online and what the steps are that you need to take.
So another question, what was the transition like from in-person paint parties to online? And do you have any advice for women with small children that want to teach online?
Well, I still technically have a small child. I mean, for me, it's just setting those times. If they're really small, planning around when you can do it at their nap time. You can pre-record your stuff. You don't have to be live like I am now and then worry about, your kids running in or someone waking up or anything like that. If you know you're going to have a quiet time, maybe that's early in the morning before they get up. Maybe it's their nap time. I remember I used to schedule my work around my daughter's nap time. That was when I got my college work done. Sorry if you can hear the outdoor noise. And so that was when I used that time to build my business while my kids were growing up. The transition from offline to online was a slow transition. So it was not immediate. I started my membership and just like no one knew me outside of Springfield. And I just opened it to my local ladies who had been painting with me for the past 5 years at that point in time, and told them what I was doing. And I really want to start moving online so I can spend more time with my kids. And so they were the first ladies to come into my group, and slowly, I started spending some Facebook ad money and trying to reach new audiences and grow further. So it was baby steps, getting to where I am now, which is 100% online. I no longer teach local classes, and I just teach online.
Perfect. So how do you find a business coach, and how do they work? And do they have to be in the same field as you?
No, I don't think so necessarily. So I've had several business coaches. For me personally, because I'm a creative, I wanted to find someone who was also creative and kind of like was in our world, because it's a little bit different. You guys may have heard her name before, but Jennifer Allwood was one of the very first women that I saw online who kind of spoke my language and taught creatives how to build a business. But now, a lot of my friends do who are here. Heidi Easley with Texas Art and Soul. We partner together a lot, and she's one of my best friends, and she teaches women how to grow their paint party businesses online. So it's very specific to that, and all the tips and tricks you need to do that. So if you ask me now, I would recommend her to you because it's very specific to this genre. And that's kind of why we tag team together. I teach women how to paint and build their skill and become better artists, and Heidi teaches them the business side of things. And I forgot the second part of that question, if you'll remind me.
Sorry, just 1 second. Let me find it. Okay, if you want to go ahead and start painting while I find it, I'll read it out loud in a second, and I'll just keep on asking questions out loud while you paint so that everybody can get started.
So I'm going to kind of show you guys what I'm using tonight. And this is really important. And I tell this to all the women that are in both of my memberships who paint with me on my page. I paint live probably once to twice a week. So you can follow me over on Facebook to see that. I'm going to show you what I use as far as paint. It is so not important to have exactly the same colors that I have. And I try to really stress that to my women for multiple reasons, because art is not, it's not a science. This is about you having fun and playing with colors and finding your voice and finding who you want to be in your art. It doesn't need to look exactly like mine. So like, I'm going to show you, like I'm using aqua green and deep red. These are from Michael's. These are artist Loft, academic grade acrylic paint. But what I would tell you is go find a pretty teal that you like and go find a red that you like. That's how specific it needs to be. And especially right now with stores not always being in stock with everything, I can't always guarantee you that because I show you a product that you're going to be able to find it in the store or online. So it's good to just kind of take a deep breath and know it doesn't have to be that exact thing. So those are just a couple of colors. I'm going to use bright magenta. I'm going to use white. Those are in, again, the Artist Loft academic level acrylic. Now I also use a majority of what I paint with is just craft paint. So these are a couple of my favorite colors from Michael's. And this is just their, I'm going to try to hold these up so you guys can see, but this is just their Craft Smart craft acrylic paint. And this is what I built my paint party business off of, you guys. So you do not have to have a ton to get started. You can just start with some basics, but this is plum. Robin's egg blue is I call this one of my signature colors. This is in a lot of my paintings. And then sage green. And then I love gold. It's a lot of my paintings. This is Deco Art's Extreme Sheen, which is a gold. Any metallic gold is fine though. So that's kind of what I'm using. I'm gonna start with using just a large flat brush to fill in the canvas. And then we're gonna switch to the palette knives. So for palette knives, you can get like a set of 5 and they come with a variety of sizes. I just have 3 of them here that I'm gonna use today. And again, I kind of go with the feel. I don't have a specific, you have to use this size when you're painting this flower. It doesn't have to be that way. Use what's comfortable for you. If you don't want to buy a 5-pack of them, you can also get plastic palette knives. So any of that is fine and okay.
So Christy, we have a couple of quick questions. Should we have the background already painted?
No. So when you paint with me, don't do anything ahead of time. So whenever I'm teaching, like even inside my membership, I tell them don't prep ahead of time. Like come in, and actually what I recommend to my ladies is to watch me and then paint. And the reason why is because if you're trying to keep up with me, I'm going to paint faster than you because I've been painting for my whole life. And if you're new, that's going to stress you out and it's going to get you flustered because you're trying to keep up. So you guys are going to be able to watch this on replay. So my recommendation is to watch me first and then go back and watch the replay and take it at your own pace where you can pause it, stop it, rewind it, all that good stuff. If you want to paint along, obviously you can, but we're not going to paint the entire background. So I'm just going to start with black and my large flat, and I'm just really going to load it up. And I'm going to hold this paintbrush up and show you guys kind of how much paint is on there. For a lot of you, if you haven't painted before, that may look like a whole lot of paint. Because when I taught classes, kind of what I saw was that I would teach a step in the front of the class and then say, okay, do this part. And I'd come around and people would be doing it and they're like, why doesn't mine look like yours? And 90% of the time, the reason why it didn't is because they were coming in their paint and just dabbing just a little bit on there and just lightly putting it on. And then this is what you got, right? Like it just wouldn't fill it in all the way. Versus if you really load your paintbrush up, now I don't want it dripping off, but you really load it up and it's gonna start covering so much better. And my guide to tell you, again, there's not, people say, well, exactly how much? It's not like that. You want enough on there that it's not dripping off and that it's gliding smoothly. As long as it's gliding and covering your canvas, then you know you have enough paint on there. When it starts looking like this, that's your cue to know that you need to load your paintbrush back up again. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I'm going to kind of just, we're going to have like a skinny little base here. It's probably going to be a little bit bigger than that. And then a couple flowers here. I got ahead of myself with the black, but this is a good lesson for you guys. You can't mess up, okay? Trust the process. Keep moving along with it. If you do something you don't like, all you have to do is let it dry and you can paint over it. So I'm going to show you guys my reference photo again, because I want you to see, this is sort of what we're going with. I'm not trying to make it, I'm trying to get it out of the ring light. We're not gonna make it exactly like that, but you kind of get an idea of what we're going for. But I got carried away showing you about brush strokes, but that's okay. I'm not gonna let that stress me out. I'm gonna kind of give myself an idea of where these flowers are gonna go. And I can always change my mind because I can let that black dry and then I can paint right over top of it again. So it's not a big deal. The worst thing you could do, especially because we're painting with black, right? The worst thing you could do is to try to move too fast and fix your mistake while the paint is wet. All it's gonna do is create a big mess for you on your canvas and a bigger headache than what you already have. So I'm just gonna fill this in.
So Christy, while you fill that in, someone's asking if it's possible to use wood, specifically basswood, instead of canvas.
I use wood all the time and I love painting on wood. I haven't painted on that specifically, but I have painted on 60-year-old cedar. Like, I mean, whatever scraps my husband will find me off of buildings and fences. I love to paint on stuff like that because it just makes it super unique. So yes, you can definitely paint on wood, and I use the same paints that I'm using tonight for that.
Perfect. And what about printer paper?
That will not work for painting. As soon as you get paint on there, it's going to tear apart and just fall apart for you. If you are not wanting to paint on canvas, what I recommend to every single person that paints with me is called a mixed media pad. And that is meant for sketching, for colored pencils, pastels, almost all mediums except oils. But acrylic paint, watercolor, pen and ink, you can use that for anything. And so I have all my students get a mixed media pad. Gretchen, I think the one I have is like a 9x13. Does that sound right? No, it's not. It's 11x14 because I can always frame them. So I would recommend an 11x14 mixed media pad. And what I have my students do and what I recommend you do when you're getting started, there's something about a canvas that will make us freeze. And it scares us, and we're scared we, can't make a mistake on it. In a mixed media pad, if you don't like it, turn the page and start on the next page. That is meant to be your sketchbook, your practice book. So that is what I would recommend starting to paint on. And then if you love it and you get done with something you did in your mixed media pad, you can tear it out and you can frame it in an 11x14 frame. So it doesn't have to stay stuck in that book. So that would be my recommendation instead of paper.
Okay, when someone's asking, what do you mean exactly by trust the process?
Okay, so this is kind of my saying. I've kind of coined the phrase. I'm going to show you. This is on my cup. This is our Tribe Sister logo. That's for my tribe membership. And you will, if the more you paint with me, the more you're going to hear me say it. Because when you are painting, it's going to start out looking like a hot mess, okay? And you just have to trust the process. Trust what I'm saying. Don't jump ahead. Don't try to ignore tips and rules I'm giving you. Like, follow my direction and trust me and trust the process, and it will turn out. Just like life, a lot of things, we just have to trust the process. It's all going to look kind of messy in the beginning when you're baking, when you're cooking. And usually it's not until the last 5 to 10 minutes of a painting that it all comes together. And you just have to enjoy the process and trust it and not try to think ahead to the end and tell yourself it has to look a certain way right now.
Perfect. Now we have a couple more questions about what you can paint on. So they're asking about canvas paper and watercolor pages.
So watercolor paper is meant for watercolor. So again, I would just stick to either canvas, wood, or mixed media pad as far as surfaces to paint on. What I'm doing right now, just to kind of let you guys know, so I'm sticking with that same black paint, and I already had it. It was still wet on here. Now what I'm doing is taking my palette knife. I'm going to hold this up so you guys can see this, and I'm kind of scooping it up on the back side. And I'm literally just scraping over my canvas where I already had paint there, but the palette knife is all about texture. And that's why I love it. It's messy, it gives texture. And I'm gonna hold this a little closer so you guys can see. I'll pick up a little bit of white here and there and just start scraping all over my canvas to give this background some texture here. Once I get this bottom corner done, I'll kind of hold that up for you guys to see. And I'm holding it flat. So like when you see me doing it, it is like flat up against the board. You're not digging in, you're not pushing in with the palette knife. You're just kind of scraping it across. Think about like butter in a piece of bread. You don't want to dig into the bread. But can you see that texture that's starting to happen there? It'll be easier to see when it starts drying because we won't have that shine on there. Okay, so I'm going to start getting a few other colors on my palette here. So I'm going to do kind of like a light turquoisey vase. And I think I'm going to make mine like rectangular this time. So I'm grabbing some of that robin's egg blue, and I'm going to grab some aqua green. And I'm not worried about the black scraping into this right now. I'm going to hold this one up again so you can see how messy this is. So see how there's some black in there, there's some pink, red, white, there's all kinds of colors that are going to be in our vase. So I'm not trying to make anything too perfect. Try to leave that perfectionism at the door. We don't need to be worrying about that while we're painting. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of both. I'm gonna try to hold this up so you guys can see what I'm doing here. I've got both those colors. I kind of want a little bit of both of them on the back of my palette. They're not pre-mixed, like I'm not mixing them all together completely, but they are mixing a little.
So Christy, could you recommend a varnish for acrylic paint on a canvas?
There are several things that you can use. I don't typically seal my art because it's just going to be hanging in my home. But you can literally just buy acrylic sealer. It's a spray can, quickly spray it on there. It's going to seal and protect your artwork. There are also a multitude of varnishes and sealers you can use that are brush on. I don't have a specific brand that I recommend, but if you go to that section, if you go to the art supplies in Michael's, you will see where it will tell you if you're using acrylic paint, this is like the sealer that you need. And then there's different finishes. So whether you want a gloss finish or whether you want a matte finish or maybe a semi-gloss satin, there's like, it's just like painting a wall. There's all kinds of different finishes you can have for it. You guys see this? Try to hold it a little closer. So I'm kind of pulling down and then just kind of scraping and filling this in.
And do you dilute the paint, or are you looking to use the paint with a certain texture or consistency?
You never want to dilute the paint if you're just painting like a normal acrylic painting. If you follow me like on Facebook, and I forgot to mention I'm on YouTube too, Social Easel also. If you follow me on there, you will see that I do teach a technique where you can water down acrylic paint like we're using today and use it as watercolor, but that's a different technique. For this, anytime you're just painting an acrylic painting, I do not water my paint down. You use it straight out of the tube. If anything, I would add something to it. Like for these craft paints, they're thinner, right? So like they're more watery than this tube acrylic paint. So what I would do, especially if I'm doing palette knife, I didn't bring it for here and you can see you don't have to have it. But if you want that thicker texture that's going to stand off your canvas, you would get what's called gel medium. And it's clear, it doesn't change the color of your paint, and you just squirt it right into your craft paint and it makes it a thicker consistency like the academic level that comes out of the tube.
Perfect. And as the paint dries, does the texture from the knife hold, or does it level out?
It will hold. So yeah, as long as, you know, like anything that I leave on there when it's wet, and you can, I'm going to try to hold this up at angles. You can kind of see like all those lines and that little extra thickness in those areas where I left it a little thicker. It will stay that way when it's dry. So right now I'm just grabbing, I did those two colors of like teal. I'm just putting a little bit of white in here, but you guys can kind of see how messy this technique is. I'm even going to pull a little bit of black. So I tell people when you're painting with a palette knife, you have to embrace the messiness. Enjoy it, have fun with it. I tell my ladies, just leave that perfectionist part of yourself at the door. She doesn't get to come to this party, okay? Now I'm gonna wipe that off because we're gonna switch and start doing our flowers. What do you guys think so far? Let me know if you're liking it. If you guys have used palette knife before.
Looks like everyone's loving it.
Good. So I'm going to grab two more. You're going to have a couple different styles of paint here. This is the magenta and red in the academic level. So, and I'm going to show you my palette once I get these on here so you can see what I mean about the thickness of the paint. And I'm actually going to get a little bit more white over here where it's not mixed in with my black. And I teach all different styles of painting as far as like acrylic. Watercolor, mixed media. And what that means, a lot of people aren't familiar with that term. Mixed media just means using different mediums. So a medium is acrylic paint, watercolor, pens, scrapbook paper, stencils, and we mix all that stuff together into a piece of art. So I teach all 3 of those different styles in my painting, and sometimes I incorporate a lot of things into one painting. If you guys want another free lesson, if you're having fun with this one, and the free lesson is completely different style. It's my winter chapel, and it's super fun. It's perfect for this time of year, and all you have to do is go to socialeaselfreebie.com, and you guys can sign up for an additional free lesson if you're having fun with this one. And I've just got a couple more paints to get on here, and then I'm gonna show you guys. I'm trying to decide if I want to add some leaves in this or if I just want all flowers.
So while you're doing that, do you have any suggestions for painting on fabric? For example, pillow covers?
I don't. I don't know if there is any kind of special technique you use. I know people still use, like you can use this craft paint on fabric, but I don't know if you have to put any kind of special sealer or anything on that because I don't typically paint on fabric. So I'm going to show you guys my palette, and hopefully you guys can see the difference here. See how thick this white and red and hot pink is? And see how when I'm tilting that plate, that plum color and the greens, they're starting to kind of run. So that's the different consistencies between craft paint and the academic level, is that thickness, that viscosity. So if I wanted those craft paints to be thicker, that's when I would add the gel medium to them. So I'm going to start with, I'm just going to use that angled brush. This is out of the Michaels 10-piece set from Artist Loft. And this is where I just kind of decide the placement of my flowers, okay? We can change our mind if I get them on there and we don't like it. So I'm just going to go straight into like the hot pink first. And maybe I want to have this kind of overlapping that edge a little bit. And I'm going to show you, like, that's okay that it pulled in some of that turquoise. I'm not worried about that. This is just a base coat. This is the part where I would say trust the process, because look how terrible that looks right now, but you're not going to know that that's what it looked like at all when we get done. So we're just getting our placement down, deciding where we want our flowers to be and how much they're going to overlap, all those good things. Maybe a smaller one right here.
Do you have any suggestions for people who painted the whole canvas black from the get-go? We have a few people who did that.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. Grab a blow dryer and blow dry it, and then you're just going to keep painting like I did. So it won't matter. I could have painted that whole thing black, but you're going to see me paint over these black parts because my flowers are not going to stay just in those empty spots on the canvas. So I keep a blow dryer at my station for when I don't want to wait for the paint to dry on its own and I want to speed up the process. I just blow dry it so I can keep on moving. So none of the brush strokes I'm doing right now matter at all, okay? I am just filling in that space so I know that's the shape and the placement of where my flowers are going to be in my vase. It doesn't matter that there's black in there, that there's white, that there's blue, none of that's going to matter. Some of these are going to overlap. Anytime you overlap things in your painting, you're adding some depth to it because they're overlapping. So it's going to pull one thing in front of the other. So the more you can overlap in your art, the more interesting it's going to be and more appealing it's going to be to your eye. So I wanted to make sure that I overlapped down here at the bottom. We're going to have like a little flower come out. That blue's really wet still, so I'm just going to wipe some of that off. But we're going to have like a flower kind of come down a little bit there. And then these flowers are going to overlap each other up here. And I think I might have one more kind of poking out of the top here. Okay, so that's just kind of like our base of what we're starting with. Another one of, so I want you guys to see how not awesome this is right now, because it's going to totally change. But another tip that I give to my students is while you're painting, take pictures of your progress. Like when you, like, let's say, you know, take a picture of like when it was just your vase in the black. Take a picture when it's at this stage. Look at your photo on your phone. It's going to look different than what your naked eyes can see. And you're going to see like, I don't really like that. I'm going to add a flower over here, or I'm going to make this one bigger, or maybe they all look the same size. It just allows you to see things from a different perspective, and it's going to help you evaluate your art better while you're creating it, so you can make those tweaks along the way. It helps a ton. So when I teach live, I'm always looking at my painting in the video and deciding like, that didn't really look good, or I need to change that. So obviously you're not videoing yourself, you can take pictures while you're working. And then it's also fun to look at your whole process of art while you're doing it.
Christy, could you remind us what size paintbrush you're using?
That was a 5/8 inch angled brush, and it came out of the Michaels Artist Loft 10-piece set. Any angled brush is fine. Honestly, I could have even done that with a round brush, because it was just kind of to get our shapes on there. So just something that will hold enough paint that would easily spread, instead of like a tiny little paintbrush, you know, where it's not going to hold a lot of paint. So for that step, it doesn't quite matter what type of brush or what size brush you're using, as long as it can hold enough paint that you can get it on your canvas where you want it. So I'm going to switch to my smallest palette knife now. And the reason I'm doing my smaller one is because it's going to allow me to get in these angles better, and start kind of building my flowers up. And so this is where you're really going to start seeing them kind of come to life a little bit more. I'm going to start with the hot pink again, and I'm going to start with this one at the top, because this is going to go behind these other two. Let's grab a little bit of white in there with it. And I'm just kind of going in a curved motion. I don't necessarily want them to be perfect circles, okay? I want, you know, maybe a little bit of irregular shape around the edges. And it's just going to kind of look messy in the beginning. And then if you need to hold your canvas, you can. You don't feel like you have to keep it a certain way. Sometimes with angles, it's easier for us to rotate our canvas on our easel. And a lot of times, like when I'm teaching in my online classes for my memberships, I actually teach flat, because it gives them a better view of what I'm doing. So if you grab that freebie, that's how that one will be taught. And again, that one's socialeaselfreebie.com. And you'll be learning the Winter Chapel, and that is taught in the view that I teach my classes in. That's going to give you an overhead view so you can really see what I'm doing. But I'm going to hold this up, and hopefully you guys can see some of this texture and see how messy that is. Okay, so it doesn't look like much right now, but we're going to keep moving on. I'm going to move on to the next flowers. When I'm doing this with the palette knife, I'm not putting a ton of pressure down. I'm going to try to hold this a little bit closer while I'm doing it. I'm just kind of, see how that palette knife is not even bending. I'm not digging in. I'm just kind of scraping over, okay? And then you always want to scoop up the paint on the back side. So you're making this motion when you're coming out of your paint.
So Christy, would this work with oil paints? And if so, what's the difference between acrylic and oil paints?
Yes, you can definitely do palette knife with oils. So oils is what I learned with when I was in college. Acrylics are fast drying. Acrylics are very slow drying. Oils, you cannot clean with water and soap. You have to have turpentine. It's a completely different process. So you can do this exact same style painting But like right now, if I touched this, this would all be dry. Oils, it would be days until that was dry. So you can constantly move things around with oils. Whereas with acrylic, you want to make a change, you let it dry first and then you make a change. So it's just a completely different process. So I'm just bouncing back and forth between those colors that I have. I've got some reds and pinks and plums, and I'm just going to start filling in these circular shapes. And I don't have any, rhyme or reason. I'm just kind of playing with it. Whatever I pick up with my palette knife and whatever style and kind of design that gives me on there, I'm just going to go with it for now. This style of painting is meant to be loose and fun, and you just kind of go with the flow and see what happens while you're painting. You guys can start seeing some of the differences in how those are looking. And like I can use that plum color to kind of come under the bottom of this rose, and it's starting to kind of look like a shadow there. So you don't have to use black for that. You can just use other colors. Same with adding the white in over here. It kind of acts as kind of a highlight and a reflection. But this is where I tell people, when I say don't stress about the colors, I want you to mix your own colors. Usually when I'm done with my palette, like this is a hot mess down here. I could make 3, 4, 5 new colors out of these 3 right here. This plum and white, I can pull this over here. Can you guys see that? Add some white to it. And look, it's like that pretty like lavenderish color. So have fun with your paints. Mixing the red and plum together are going to give me a really, really deep, almost like maroon red that I can use in my painting. So even though we started with those few colors, we can start adding in these mixes that we've done on our palette. Are you able to get any pictures, or is it just bad?
So we have another question, Christy, about what's the difference between gel medium and modeling paste?
Modeling paste. They're somewhat similar. I don't have a specific answer on that. A medium is like to change the consistency of your paint. Modeling paste is like really, really thick. Like that's if you want to create like almost like 3D art. Like it's almost, I can't think of the word for it, but I mean, it's like super thick. Gel medium is going to make it more like the tube acrylic, whereas the modeling paste is going to make it like a relief piece of art where there's actually like depth coming off of the canvas. So what do you guys think of these flowers so far? You see how they're starting to come together and start taking some shape?
You're looking great.
And you can do these all the same color. I'm just deciding to kind of play with it and put some different shades in there, but you don't have to do that. And I'm going to pull this flower over top of my other ones. So let's pull it over that edge.
So Christy, if someone doesn't have plum color, is there any way to make it with other colors?
Yes, purple and red.
Perfect.
And then you just play with the consistency and you just keep mixing until you like it. So it's all about the ratio of purple to red that gives you all different colors. You could make 4 different versions of it if you wanted to. Trying to make sure that angle is still good for you guys. And like I could even, do something like really bold on here and get like a really thick thing of white. and just put it right on here and just not blend it in and make it really, really thick. The more you keep moving over it, the more it's going to go into your canvas. If you want it to be bold and have a lot of texture and come off the canvas, you're just going to keep layering that paint on nice and thick. So I'm going to add a little bit more of this plum color maybe down on this side. Maybe come in with just some like curved shapes with the white or pink. This is where we're going to start kind of layering and building these flowers up. And then the thing that really sets them off is putting the black centers on the inside. So I'm going to show you that next. So this is kind of, oh, I forgot my bottom one. Hang on, let's get this little guy at the bottom here.
Christy, someone's asking what the best way to handle the knife is.
I mean, this is how I hold mine. I mean, the main thing you're wanting to do is just make sure you're putting the paint on the back side of that. And then hold it to where it's comfortable for you. So if you see me rotating the canvas to get a better angle, that's why. And then you're just holding it flush with the canvas. So you're not pushing into it. You're just like kind of butter and bread, or putting peanut butter on bread. Think of it like that. You're not pushing down and digging into it.
Do you find that a limited palette helps teach shading?
Not necessarily. I mean, I can teach it no matter how many colors we have. There's different ways you can go about it and learning how to do color mixing. I would recommend getting a color wheel for sure. And then the other thing that you want to pay attention to is value scale. So another thing I have my students do is create their own value scale with just black and white and see how many different shades from black to white, how many different grays can they get in between there. You can do the same thing with all your colors. I could take that same red and go from red to white and red to black backwards and make, you know, multiple shades and tints going both directions. And that's just with one color. And then you can also use complementary colors to do shading. So, you know, the opposite of red on the color wheel is green. So when you add green to red, it tones it down. So if I have a really, really bright red here and I don't want it to be that bright, now this is not the exact opposite green because this is a muted one, but still I can mix this green into my red and it's going to give me a muted color of that. And I have a whole lesson on color mixing and shading on my blog too. So that's something you can check out there if you want to learn more about that.
Perfect. And we have several questions about if they have to follow along and do paint exactly with the same colors that you're using, or if they can just do whatever they feel like doing.
No, and I encourage people to do whatever they want. So when you watch the replay, I actually kind of discussed this at the beginning because I love for you guys to just go and pick out your own colors. A lot of people get fixated on I have to have plum because Christy had plum, or I have to have deep red, not red. It really doesn't matter. So my advice to you is to go into the store and look at all the colors you have to choose from. Doesn't matter what brand it is. And find the colors that you like or that match your home decor. And then those are the colors that you want to use in your painting. I think I'm going to add one more little guy up here. Maybe just a small one kind of coming out on the edge.
We have another question, Christy. What is the difference between opaque, semi-opaque, and translucent, and regular acrylic paint?
Okay, so opaque is going to be your most solid. So it's not going to be see-through at all. Semi-opaque is kind of in between. Transparent is going to be very thin, and you're going to be like, if I painted transparent on black, I would still be able to see the black through there, whereas opaque would cover that up completely. White is a very opaque color, and I use that a lot to add to my other colors to make them more opaque, to make them more solid if that color tends to be transparent. The other thing you can do is just let it dry and then put a second coat on. When you're painting with acrylic paint, you don't want to keep loading paint on paint when you're doing a typical brush style. Now with palette knife, I'm purposely adding paint on paint because I want that thick texture. But if you're painting with a paintbrush and you're trying to build the opaqueness, so you're not seeing that color behind it, like let's say you had a leaf behind there you wanted to cover up, and you keep seeing that leaf and you want to get it covered up, don't keep adding wet paint and wet paint on there because it's just going to make it a thick gloppy mess. Instead, you would put a coat on, let it dry, put a coat on, let it dry, and do it that way. That's when I usually would add a little bit of white to my first coat because it's going to help it cover it a little bit better. So I'm just going to go in with some white. This is where I kind of like to just add some random little strokes in here. I'm even going to throw in like a little bit of green here and there. And this is just real quick and messy. You can kind of see how quick I'm doing this. There's not a definite rhyme or reason. Maybe pick up a little teal. I just like to throw these bold colors in my paintings sometimes. It just gives it a little bit of pop and interest, something unexpected that maybe you wouldn't think of being in a flower. And then this is the part that I love. I'm going to start adding in some black. I'm going to have to get a little bit more on my palette. And we're going to start adding in these centers. And they can be thick and messy. They don't all have to be perfect or the same size, but that's kind of like what finishes off this style of painting I'm doing. So you can see all those different colors and texture. And the key is to not overblend. So like if I just kept going with that green, it would start blending into my red and then it would turn into that really muted color. Same with the turquoise. So I'm quickly coming on and just scrape, 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 and just bouncing around the painting, not staying in one area too long.
Christy, what would you recommend more, using an easel with a knife or laying it flat on the table? What's the difference?
It's honestly all preference. I prefer painting flat now, just because that tends to be how I teach my students. Sometimes, I mean, I'll keep one of these tabletop easels in my studio, but most of the time I paint flat. I like it when you're doing palette knife because it is thicker. You don't have to worry about like it being gloppy and running. And it's just easier to kind of turn and rotate and, you know, make the canvas wherever you need it to be. So don't you love that black just starts making the painting kind of come together, pulls the flowers together. I love poppies. So these are like my abstract version of poppies.
And what could you do to make the painting a little more realistic?
Well, that's not really a super simple question. It's just a completely different style of painting. So with palette knife, it's not about, like, this is not a photorealist type of painting. That's not going to be something that you do with a palette knife. That's going to be something you do with paintbrushes. So if you're wanting that style, you know, I've got different paintings, you know, on my website that you can look at that show a different way. This is just not that style of painting. It's not a realistic look.
Thank you. And would you mind maybe giving us a close-up of how you hold the knife with the paint on it, please?
Yeah, I'll try to get a little closer here. So I'm going to come in with this one little flower that I don't care for so much. Can you guys see? I'm trying to get it a good angle for you.
That looks great.
So see how lightly I'm touching that? I'm holding it lightly in my hand. I'm not like gripping it. And I'm just kind of lightly pulling it around. So I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to grab a little bit of white. And I want the black on this one to kind of be in that corner where it's meeting. But I'm going to hold this even closer without me trying to show you, because I really want you to see up close kind of how messy all these black areas are. Look at the brush strokes up close. Because from far away, right, it all kind of comes together. When you look at all these up close, you're like, well, that just looks messy. But then the further away you get, it kind of comes together. So one of my finishing touches, I'm probably still gonna play with that flower a little bit, I'm not completely happy with that, is gonna be me adding some gold to maybe doing some extra scrapes on my background with the palette knife. So you can see that texture already, the white and the black mixed together. But like I said, I love gold. It gives a little bit of shine, gives a little bit of pop. So we're gonna scrape some gold in there too. And I'm actually gonna leave all this messy paint on my palette knife when I grab the gold and scrape that in, because I want those little random strokes of color in my background when I do that. So see how that picked up some reds in there too. And I'm just, look how little paint I have on there. And so this is like runny, not super thick, but I can just kind of scrape it wherever I want. And it's picking up the grooves of that canvas and creating that texture. So that's the difference of when you're painting dry versus painting wet on wet. And if
So how would you, sorry, Christy.
No, you're fine.
How do you add texture to a wet painting?
Well, I mean, this is all, it's the same thing. It's a different type of texture. So this is going to give you that rough pulled look. You're going to see the grooves of the canvas more. This texture is created by layers of paint. So they're both creating textures, just a different style. So I don't like that gold that I put right here. That's too much. So I'm just going to grab some more black and I'm just going to scrape right back over top of it again. So that's what I want people to realize is, like, don't worry about messing up. You can always go back and change it. I just want to soften that a little. And I may even decide later I don't like any of that gold at all. And I might want to come back and just cover it up with more white. So I'm just kind of playing with the painting and seeing what happens and seeing what I like and if I want to change anything.
Would you recommend using the tip of the knife more for like finishing touches?
It's more for when you want to do detailed work, or like if I wanted to come in here and even like scrape. See how if I kind of pull in there, there's enough paint on there that it's creating little lines if you wanted to do that. Or, you know, I'm using like the tip of it right now and just kind of scooting that paint around instead of it being flat, because if I do it flat, it's going to be like that 1-inch blade. If I'm using the tip, I have more control of a small space. So usually what I do at this point is I kind of step back and try to look at my painting from a different vantage point. I would take a photo if I was at home and look at it and then compare it to my painting, look at my picture on my phone again, and kind of decide what else I want to add to it, if anything. So that is like my basic lesson for you guys. And hopefully you had fun with it and you learned something new with this looser style of painting. Maybe it'll challenge you to use a palette knife if you haven't used a palette knife before. But I'll just kind of open it up to questions. and then we can go from there.
Well, a bunch of people would like if you could repeat the website for your free classes again, and your social media as well.
Sure. So all social media, YouTube, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. It's the Social Easel everywhere. My full website with my blog, my shop, all that stuff is just thesocialeasel.com. So we keep it super easy for you guys. And if you want a freebie from me and learn how to paint the winter chapel, it's one of my most popular ones. That's my freebie right now. And you just go to socialeaselfreebie.com.
Perfect. Someone's just asking if you are going to add any leaves, use green for leaves or something.
I am not. I decided I don't want to add leaves in this one. So I just kind of want this to be more of like a modern take on it. I could poke in some leaves here and there, but I kind of just like the simplistic style of just the flowers. Someone was asking for a close-up, so I'm just kind of giving you guys a little closer up view there.
Perfect. And what themes for paintings do you have you found that are most popular?
My farm animals are a really popular one that I've done. I did a series of a cow, a pig, and a rooster. Those are some of my best sellers in my store. Flowers are really, really popular, and I teach all different kinds: sunflowers, hydrangeas. My painting of the month club right now, which is my $20 a month painting membership, is sunflowers in a vase. And that one is, one of my all-time favorites. I still have it hanging in my home, and it's got a light teal black background with big sunflowers in like a mason jar. So that one's really pretty. Let me see if I can find a picture of that, and I'll show you guys. So I teach it all. I teach all different styles, and sometimes I have themes for each month, and sometimes I just kind of sit down and paint and let my creative juices come to me. My most recent one, I'll show you guys this, where I talked about I teach different styles. So this is a challenge. This actually starts on Monday. You guys can sign up for this and just go to the website. You'll see it. Just socialeasel.com. But this is my lovebirds. So we've got these cute little lovebirds on bird houses. So that's an acrylic paint version. And then this one in a frame is my watercolor version with pen and ink, or you can use watered down acrylic for that. So that's more, I love whimsical, fun, cute stuff. And this class is $27, and I teach you both versions over 2 days, and you have lifetime access to them. So you can get them and take the lessons whenever you want to. And then we do a mini devotional at the beginning of each one of these lessons, where I'm kind of helping you guys get over your fear of painting, trusting God, trusting the process, and just kind of uplift you in the beginning before we get painted. And then I go to the lesson. And then I was just gonna see if I could find another one for you guys really quick.
While you find that, we have one last question. Do you use primer for to cover your canvas first?
I do not. And a lot of this comes from just teaching paint classes. It's try to make it fast and easy for a big group of people. I literally would buy the bulk pack from Michael's, the 5-pack or whatever size you get. It's a different number. But like I would just buy the bulk pack, and we paint straight on there. They're pre-primed, they're pre-prepped when you buy them. So it's not necessary unless you just feel like you want to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
My computer's being, or my, sorry, my iPad's being a little bit slow. Gretchen, you don't happen to have that, do you? Let me, give me just a second. I'll try to show you the sunflowers that I'm talking about. Okay, here is the painting of the month club. So the painting of the month club is a new membership that I started this past year, and you get one painting per month with me for $20 a month. There is no commitment, so you can cancel anytime. Like if you just see this painting and you're like, yep, I want to paint the sunflowers, you can just sign up for this and cancel before the next month. But these are exclusive paintings. So this is my sunflowers in a mason jar. You won't find anything that I do in my Painting of the Month Club. You won't find anywhere else. It's not in my shop. It's not on Pinterest. It's not in a blog. The only place you can purchase those tutorials is through that membership exclusively. So anyways, that just gives you kind of another style of painting that I do. So like I said, I kind of teach it all.
Perfect. I think that's pretty much it for questions.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on your page again. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun. And yeah, just the social easel across the board. And you'll find me and my blog and all the goodies. And if you want the freebie, it's socialeaselfreebie.com.
Perfect. Everyone loved it. So thank you so much, Christy. And thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.